Hello, Kiki. Wow, your drawing is so amazing. Thank you. I just want to finish this very dark shadow right here under her chin to make the face seem popping off the paper, or to make it, three-dimensional. Because the life of every portrait depends highly on the shadows. So you should really establish your darks. Colored pencil, graphite, charcoal drawings. Hi, I love your work. Thank you so much. Although this shadow under the chin is extremely dark, but it's not completely black. So do not leave your dark shadows just black, because it will not look natural. So even the very dark shadows have nice tone. So I'm gonna layer more lighter colors on top of this black shadow right here to make it more realistic and more natural. So I put a high concentration of the black right here on the chin, near the chin, and then going down, it becomes lighter and lighter. Now I'm gonna put this sepia color to our black layer. And then I'm gonna tone my dark shadow with this Crimson Lake, a very nice muted red color. I'm looking for my Prismacolor colorless blender. Pranav Kedkar, does he reply to live chat? Yes, yes, I do. But now I'm looking for my colorless Prismacolor blender and I couldn't find it. Where is it? So here I got my Prismacolor Premier colorless blender. You really need this, especially when you need to blend uh, some solid dark shadows. And like this part, this is just very nice and solidly dark shadows. And I don't want to use lighter pencils to blend this because aside from I want to preserve my pencils, I just want to keep it as dark as possible using this colorless blender. Pranav Kedkar, your drawing is amazing, but is there stream where you have drawn face from start? I think so. You can check my live uh, folder, or what do you call it? Uh, it's like on my channel, there's an album or a folder where all my lives are there and some other live drawings. So when you use a blender, a colorless blender, by the way, this is the best that I can recommend, the Prismacolor colorless blender, because the other colorless blenders in the market are too waxy and it can entirely ruin the drawing. But this one is, even if it is Prismacolor, it's not waxy at all. It's really nice to use when blending solid portions. As you can see, it brings out the darkness of the shadow. But when you use colorless blender, you don't want to put heavy pressure. Maybe just medium pressure and try to blend using circular motion. But usually I don't use Prismacolor colorless blender on the actual skin tone because it has the tendency to over darken the skin tone. So I just basically use this on parts like this where the shadow is really very dark and you want to keep them dark. So just like colored pencil, you can just sharpen it the way you sharpen your colored pencil, but this is a colorless blender by Prismacolor. Wasan, do you have any advice to develop my drawing skills? There are lots of advice. First of all, practice is the best thing to do. Keep practicing and do not be discouraged when the output is not yet good at the start. Just keep on practicing and keep on learning the technique of whatever medium you're going to use. You need to have the skill. You can acquire it by watching other artists work, and the YouTube is an amazing platform for beginner artists because there are everything that you need to learn from a particular medium, from a particular technique. It's all in YouTube. So you just need to study and practice. Wasan, how can I succeed in placing facial features in the correct places to make the drawing look like a reference? So, if you are trying to achieve realistic style like what I do, because there are different style to drawing. We have realism, we have hyperrealism, we have semi-realism, we have expressionist style. So there are styles that doesn't need any measurement, but for the style that I'm doing, which is realism, I really need the correct proportion of the face. So there are several technique to use. But I started when I was a beginner, and this is what I advise to every beginner artists, uh, is to start with a perfect proportion. There should be a sketch that is perfectly aligned with your reference photo. So the best measurement to do, you need to study the grid method. The grid method, that is the most basic. So you should start with that, because I personally started when I was a beginner. I started studying the grid method, where you put tiny squares and other shapes to be able to like trace the outline of your reference, because you need to start using uh, the grid method to have perfect proportion. You really need to have your eyes perfectly. It depends on how big you want your drawing to be. Even if your reference is small and you need to make it big, you just make the proportion bigger. So the grid method is perfect for beginners. Not only did the grid method give you perfect proportion, if you do it correctly, it will also train your eyes um, to for the right shape of the facial features. Pranav Kedkar. Bro, I am new to drawing. I can draw faces, but what's that? They feel 2D. Can I add depth to drawing with just black? Can I add depth to drawing with just black and white? Um, what medium are you using? Is it colored pencils or just regular graphite or charcoal? Because if it is colored pencil, um, that's correct. The realism of the facial features and the drawing, which is seem to look three-dimensional, seem to look popping out of the paper. It really depends on the contrast, or the relationship between the shadows and the highlights. So you really need to darken the shadows if it requires, depending on the reference photo. Like here, like for example, right here, there are different levels of shadows that you need to achieve. There are like dark shadows right here compared to here on the parts where the shadows, the highlights are. So right here, I tried to make it a little bit darker compared to this part. So now you can see that the face is like three-dimensional just because of the shadow. And then I added this very, very dark shadow under the chin area to make the face look like it's popping up out of the paper. So if the shadow is dark, make it dark using. You can even use black, but be careful not to overly use the black, especially the skin tone part. But here, I have the license to use the black right here, because the shadow right here is very, very dark, and I need to make it really dark to be able for the chin to pop out of the paper. So that's the secret to realism. If, like for example, If the highlights is really very light, make it very very light to be able to what do you call it, to make it more realistic and three-dimensional. So the level of realism depends on the degree of the shadows. It's called the contrast, the relationship between your dark shadows and your light shadows, or your highlights. So as you can see here, I layered black, some brown, some greenish tone, and some reddish tone. And then I'm blending it using this Prismacolor colorless blender. And there you can see how full the shadow has become, especially with the help of this Prismacolor colorless blender. But I might use more color pencils above this blender later on. But as of the moment, I'm just trying to preserve the darkness of the shadow by using this blender. So it goes lighter down here. This part is more dark compared to this part. There's just like a gradient as you go lower right here because I didn't add too much black on this area. So I'm still using the Prismacolor colorless blender. I think this is just around 100 pesos or more. I think around 110 pesos. But you don't consume it very easily because it has a very hard lead. It's not very waxy, surprisingly, because when I use other blenders before, the colorless blender like the Derwent seems to be very waxy. They are hard to use because they put a very waxy film on your layers. So when you blend using the Derwent blender, you can't seem to add more layers above the blended surface. Unlike the Prismacolor colorless blender, this is really, I really recommend it if you are a colored pencil user because you can use it not just with the colored with Prismacolor colored pencils. You can use it uh, on other colored pencil brands. So very nice, and it doesn't because it is colorless. It doesn't affect the color. It just blends the the layers that you put on the paper. I really need to get the contour perfectly of the jawline because that is, I think, something that you cannot mess with on this particular drawing because her jawline is very prominent and it has a little bit of shape, or like it's not perfectly straight, so you have to get it right because I think that is one of her most prominent feature aside from her eyes is her jawline. Greetings, Dorita Luciani. Greetings from Peru. Should you we always start by applying the shadows, or are there times when we must apply the lighter color first? I've done graphite all my life, but this is quite different. Yeah, it's a lot different. Colored pencils is a lot different from the graphite, but the drawing technique. I mean, the what do you call this? The shadows, the knowledge on building shadows. You can actually apply it when you do colored pencils, but you were asking if by applying the shadows, there are times you must apply the lighter color first. Actually, that's true. I mean, it really depends on me personally. I like to go back and forth to every part, but usually you really need to start with the dark shadows. I That's what I do. I go from dark to light. So I still first establish my dark shadows, and then I go lighter with colored pencils. Even with graphite, I know, no, it's different when I do graphite. Sometimes I started by putting like lighter grade of graphite, like a base tone or something. But with colored pencils, I like to establish the darker shadows first, and then I go lighter and lighter. But it really depends on the style. So there are artists who prefer starting from light to dark. And that's totally fine. But me, I really find it easier and better for my style, and easier when I go from dark to light. But in this case, um, this is basically the face is basically lighter, and then there is a deep. I just want to be able to get the shape of especially the jawline because it is where the shape of the face depends when you were able to establish the jawline first. So I feel like happier when I can see already the shape of the face. Before I could actually, this is unfinished. The face right here and the forehead is still unfinished. They are just I just put like a powderized colored pencil base tone right here, but the actual layering of colored pencils is not yet on this part, only here in this part, on the darker part. But I decided to finish the jawline first because I want to just see already the shape of the face. Um, there's a question from Bhupinder Kaur Basha. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Sir, one question, sir. Why do many artists apply sepia, burnt sienna, raw amber, or green, or or even gray and green as a base color for white skin tone? Please give reason. Because it really doesn't matter if it is a white skin tone or a colored person's skin tone. It really depends on the degree or the darkness of the shadow. So even if it is an Asian, like a Korean skin tone, that's basically the same colors that you would use on a black American, for example. Just the degree. It just differs on the degree of the darkness. Um, uh, like for example, she is like a brown skinned. I would use the colors that I use here on a Korean skin tone, but lighter. You can use the burnt sienna, but a little bit lighter. So you just be mindful of the degree of the shadow. So uh, you even if it is an Asian skin tone, or a white person's skin tone, um, well, actually, aside from that, it really depends on the reference photo, because even if the person is white or an Asian, a Korean or Chinese, but if the reference photo has lots of contrast to it, you can still use darker colors. But it really depends on the reference photo, because there are reference photo where the contrast is not very high, like Koreans, for example, they don't particularly like uh, taking photos using darker contrasts. I don't know why, but there are white people like in America where they, even if their skin is white, they want to take their photos with higher contrast. So whatever skin tone type it is, you can still use all those dark colors. But the degree, it should be lighter when it needs to be light. Colored pencil, graphite, charcoal drawings, that is how I paint. I learn it by doing acrylics. It's called uh, grisaille. That's good for you, for being able to learn acrylics, because I find liquid medium very, very difficult. That's why I stick with the pencil mediums. Colored pencil, graphite, charcoal drawings. All my artwork is done by resale. Is that how you pronounce it? It helps when you are colorblind. I see shades very well, but not the colors. I see what you mean, because even if you're colorblind, if when you see it as a colorblind, you will see it like a charcoal or graphite. The shadows are still very full, even if you don't see the colors, the actual colors. So this is what I meant by when the process you use a colorless blender like this, the Prismacolor. It doesn't add too much wax on the layers of colors, but it blends pretty well. So this is a good blender because even if I used it already to blend this dark shadow, I can still add some tones above the blended surface of the colorless blender. As you can see here, I want to add a little bit of an orangey tone on the dark shadow right here. Even if this is almost black or dark, you can just tone it to make it look more natural using lighter and brighter colors like this one right here. So as you can see, it's still very dark, but it has a tone. So it looks, the shadow looks very natural. So instead of just using black on your shadow, you layer lots of colors above the black to make it and blend it, and now it looks, the shadow looks full but looks natural.